SciShow Tangents, the lightly competitive science knowledge showcase. I'm your host, Hank Green, and joining me this week, as always, is science expert and Forbes 30 under 30, though she is over 30 now, education luminary, Sari Riley.
Hello.
They can never take it away.
You're going to die. 30 under 30 education luminary.
Yes,
Okay.
but hopefully many years after getting the title. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, hundreds of years from now. And also joining us is our resident everyman, Sam Schultz.
What's up?
Are you still permanently the new Sam who killed the old Sam? Is that where the lore is at?
Yeah, I think that guy is gone.
He's gone.
Yeah.
He's just
a ghost
somewhere.
Yeah, he went ghost protocol.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but I have a question for you. That is unrelated.
Okay.
And it is, so we're going to launch a new line. I don't know if you've heard of this, but they're called NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
Oh, okay.
So the idea is that they're like a token that you can't fungible. And we're going to have some of those, and we have to pick what ours are going to look like. And you can do anything as long as it's a really cool looking monkey. No, anything.
Really timely question.
Yeah. I mean, I heard about this a while back, and then it sort of took some time to get it together.
Yeah. Sari, what do you think?
Well, since I've got to go first, then the expectations are rock bottom.
Yeah,
non-fungible. I think I'm going to just go straight forward and have it be like a yeast cell or other types of fungi.
A bunch of single-celled fungi.
Yeah, a bunch of single-celled fungi, and then it's a non-fungible, but it is indeed a fungi.
Fungus.
I think that's a good idea. You get all
this is
dorks.
good because it is. You can make $1 billion off them. You know, just like change some of the organelles around, have the cell wall be a little bit different, or whatever they have. Do they have cell walls?
There's an infinite number of them out there.
And they can mutate. Maybe there could be some kind of game where you like shmoo with another yeast. And then
is that a real
what's
term?
that word now that you said?
I think that's the word. I think it is some sort of asexual reproduction. So you can't really shmoo with.
I can't shmoo, but one could.
Let me see. How yeast shells use shmoos to schmooze. So it is a sexual reproduction. They I forget. That's the only thing that stuck with me from some cell biology class, and I don't remember what it is even.
I honestly thought that was like your grandma's word for kissing.
Oh. No, my family was too repressed. They did not teach me anything about smooching or anything like that.
Schmoos were like a comic book character in the 40s, Lil Abner, and they were hot. Yep. They were big. They were the skibbity.
I thought they were hot.
No, they were the skibbity toilet of their day.
They were a big deal. They were a big deal. They were not attractive to look at.
No, they were kind of gross little guys with mustaches.
I think the easy choice for me is to just do a variety of upsetting Furbies.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah. So like every Furby is upsetting in a different way. Some of them are made of beans. Some of them are made of tendons.
I think that's really good.
They have different color hair. You can swap out their guitars. I didn't mention that they had guitars.
Oh, they all have a guitar, a different kind of guitar?
Each one has a guitar, but they hold it in different places.
Acoustic.
Some of the guitar actually, sometimes it's like inside of their body, sticking out.
Oh, double-necked guitar, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of them play bass, actually. Like a weirdly high percentage of them are bass players. I made a great joke about bass guitars, everybody, but just I'm getting new internet soon, and I hope that it fixes all of my problems.
Yeah, my NFT will be all the faces that you make when you're frozen, telling us a really funny joke. Just different Hanks going like, ugh, and like, ugh. All of those fun pictures of Hank. And I think there's one right now. It's happening as we're speaking. And that was a great one. Oh my
God.
You had a beautiful smile on your face, Hank.
Screenshot
and
right away.
I put a clip art guitar over him too. So he's always playing a guitar.
I figured out what a shmoo is. It is a nodule that they can use to join together and sexually reproduce. And the process of shmooing takes around 2 hours.
A sex handle.
That's a long time.
So it's a sex handle. Yes. And
on-demand sex handle.
Yeah, I think as on-demand as any sort of sex can be. I don't know what the yeast foreplay is.
Yeah, you don't
actually
know.
Like
No.
We have a very sort of on-demand sex system. Like it doesn't work until it's time, and then it's like very worky.
That's pretty fortunate too, for the most part.
There's also like some frogs grow special thumb pads for holding on during sex season.
They're called nuptial pads, also known as thumb pads.
I'm probably nuptial.
Oh, I don't know how to say that. Nuptial. You know, that's one of the words that I've read a lot of times. Can you tell that I don't talk to people? Nuptial. Pad.
So every week here on SciShow Tangents, we get together to try to one-up, amaze, and delight each other with science facts while also trying to stay on topic. Our panelists are playing for glory, but also for Hank Bucks, which I will award as we play. And one of these people is going to be the winner at the end. But first, as always, we must introduce this week's topic with the traditional science poem. This week is from me. An entropic force, it rules unseen. A cosmic dice, a chance decree. From atom's spin to gene's routine, it shapes the way the world can be. No pattern binds, no fate contrives. Just chaos breathes and life derives. Through randomness, this arrives. You scatter stars, desculpt the clay. The threads unweave, they always fray. The flesh decays and falls away. Order comes to visit, but order never stays. The topic for the day is randomness.
That was cosmic. There's something wizardy about that, I think.
Yeah, I was sort of. I did that on a plane. I was in a very sleepy mood.
In an odd state. Was one of the lines a chance to cream?
Decree, like the decree.
Okay.
You never know.
Sure.
You always have a chance.
That makes way more sense.
Sometimes you're making eclairs. So the topic this week is randomness. Before we dive in, we're going to take a short break and then be back to define randomness. The topic for the day is randomness, which it turns out, like it seems like very straightforward, but it turns out is kind of a very important thing for the nature of the universe. And also that like there's this thing about like information, and that randomness is kind of the opposite of, I don't know exactly, but maybe Sari can tell us what randomness is.
Yeah, I think I can get around the edges of it, maybe. I don't know if it's a lack of information, but it is a lack of a pattern or predictability in information.
Okay, yeah.
So you have the information as part of randomness, but the idea is that you can't predict the next thing in a sequence of events or symbols or steps or what's going to happen next if it is random.
Right.
And there are lots of ways to define randomness in mathematics, either whether it's probability of something happening or statistically something happening, which is like related, all interconnected.
Oh, wait, is probability different from statistically? Because that's going to mess up my whole day.
I don't know. They're probably subsets. It's probably like rectangle, square.
One's inside of the
situation.
other one, yeah.
Yeah. And all of them kind of encourage people or attract people to think about the idea of like how frequent is an option of something going to happen. And if that thing is like predictable based on the things that came before it, then it is non-random in some way. And if you have no idea what's going to happen next or can't predict that, then that is random. And if somehow you can calculate what is coming up next, then that is non-random.
This is very strange to me because I feel like the idea of something being random was a very sort of intuitive, normal, like human thing, kind of, where it's like, that's so random. But then it also like it turned out to be sort of very important mathematically and cosmologically, and like the entropy of it all. And so we like got stuck with this like fun little word that actually represents this really complicated and important set of ideas.
And it started out as a fun little word. It came from Old French, randon, which then translated into the same word in in English, but we like to change the N's at the end of the word to M's.
Do a
So
little
like
punch up.
seldom, ransom, random, all started with an N, and then we decided to, in English, mush an M on the end. But those words in Old French, Middle French, etc., meant very quickly or like violently or one after another. So something random in Old French just meant like, oh, you're so random, like you're so frantic. You're just happening really fast.
Yeah. You got too much tea.
Yeah. And then we kind of adopted it as in the 1600s, as far as I can tell, to mean having no definite aim or purpose or haphazard. And then we've shoehorned it into this idea of mathematics of, we don't know what's going to happen. But it doesn't mean fast anymore.
At some point I want like a list of words like this where we just like, we needed a word for a big new idea and we just took one. We're like, that's close enough. It happens so much in science. And I like I'm like obsessed with terms being bad and good. And I don't know. I think the random's pretty good, actually. Like it's actually a pretty good, like it feels like what it actually is.
Yeah.
It's just that the concepts are kind of complicated.
And even more than like stealing it, it feels like we came up with it and then we were like, we looked into it more. We're like, uh-oh. And then the whole universe, it turned out, was like...
Yeah, I was like, at first it was like, this is the right word to use. And it was like, oh, I did not realize that this was now going to be an entire subset of physics.
And then I think a lot about how like a lot of stuff isn't actually random. Because I feel like people like to argue about that on the internet.
It's hard, actually.
Like, the actually only random thing is like a microphone in the middle of the woods that's like picking up ambient air. And then you have to like get some kind of data from that. That's like some kind of random thing, right? Like security or something like that.
They like to get true random numbers if you want to use it for like cryptography or something and protect yourself from getting cracked. You have to listen to the background radiation of the universe and convert that into ones and zeros and have that be your starting point rather than using any kind of math thing. Because if you're using a math thing, no matter how many like weird operations you add on, there's always a way to backtrack to what the equation is.
I do think it is maybe a divide between computers and not computers, because a lot of the random things or the things that we don't know how to model yet, which is to our knowledge random, we've just gotten good at modeling certain kinds of things. But like Brownian motion is how particles move microscopically, or genetic mutations we think are random, and maybe they're constrained to certain parts of the genome, but like they happen randomly in the grand scheme of things. Do they happen
randomly, or do they sort of happen like this is well, now see where we are. We're arguing whether or not the universe is actually sort of like a thing where if you run the simulation again, it would happen exactly the same way. I think that the quantum effects appear to actually make it so that it wouldn't all happen exactly the same. But I'm not sure of that.
That feels
because I'm just a guy.
There's beams shooting all over the place, hitting all kinds of stuff, right?
There's so much stuff bumping.
Yeah. I put my hand in that lot. I'd rather someone come away from this episode and be like, Sari believes that our universe is not predetermined.
Yeah.
That other than Sari believes our universe is like Minecraft, where if you start with the same Big Bang seed, then you could regenerate everything exactly as it is.
But we'll never know. Well, probably honestly, we probably will.
We might not know.
We're not going to get to run the simulation again, but we keep finding out new stuff. It's it's amazing to be 44, where you're like, oh, I've seen like a bunch of new stuff get found out. So you guys have that to look forward to.
They better hurry up.
Seen it yet.
I'm getting really close.
All right, you guys, are you ready to play our first game?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's good, because otherwise this episode would just end.
It's done.
We're going to play a game called The Scientific Definition. Our lives are shaped by randomness all the time, and it can be a lot to think about. But luckily, mathematicians know how to have fun. They make up probability puzzles. For example, one well-known probability puzzle is called the birthday problem. I love the birthday problem. It asks, if you are in a room full of randomly chosen people, what is the probability that two people will have the same birthday? One of the interesting results from the math is that if you want the probability of finding two people with the same birthday to be more than 50%, all you need is a room full of 23 randomly chosen people. It seems like it would be way more than that, but there's reasons why it's not. So today we're going to play a game of puzzles. It's a version of the scientific definition. It's all these games that mathematicians play with themselves. And I will name a probability puzzle name, and you will describe a hypothetical situation the puzzle might be asking about. And whoever comes closest to the solution will get the point. And which of you snickered when I said play with themselves?
Sari did.
That was my fault this time. Sam heard cream, and I heard this. Let me snicker in peace and let the audience figure it out.
All right. The first puzzle is called the Lost Boarding Pass Problem.
The Lost Boarding Pass Problem. What are the odds you could find a boarding pass on the ground and I don't know. Figure out.
Yeah, keep going.
Like,
you're almost there. I don't know where, but you're almost somewhere.
Get on the right train and be on the right train and find a board. I don't even know what a boarding pass is, for crying out loud.
Sam, you must.
It's a pass for boarding.
Know. Like for a plane, like a ticket for a plane.
Yeah, it's the thing that they use for a ticket for a plane. Problem. You know what, Sam? What? You're right. We didn't need a separate word for that. That's a ticket.
Yeah.
That's a ticket. Who do they think they are? With a whole new word with a bunch of syllables when ticket was right there and excellent.
Yeah, it sounds like a business lingo to me. You find a thing on the ground, and what are the odds you can match it up to which that it would be something that would be leaving in time for you to get on the plane before it left, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I think the lost boarding pass problem is something to do with seat arrangements. So if you lose your boarding pass and you don't have any proof that you know where you're sitting and you forgot. All you know is your preference.
Okay.
How likely is it that you will sit in the correct seat and not be asked to move?
Oh, that's got to be it.
Sari, that is almost exactly it. That is that is fantastic. It's the actual. It's like one more step away from that. So the lost boarding pass problem. If you have a plane, this is like a simplified version of it. If you have a plane with 100 seats and 100 passengers, and one of those passengers gets on the plane but doesn't have their boarding pass and so doesn't know where their seat is, they just sit somewhere. And then someone asks them to move. And the rest of the passengers board the plane. They look at their boarding passes. They sit in their seat unless someone's already sitting there. And if the seat's been taken, they pick a seat at random. So what is the probability that the last passenger will actually get their assigned seat? And the answer is 50%. Which is surprising. The interesting thing is that it doesn't actually depend on the number of passengers on the plane. If you want, you can simplify this down to a small plane and write out different circumstances, and you'll find that the passenger to the last passenger to board will have a 50-50 shot of picking their assigned seat or the first passenger's assigned seat. So it's like the last person there. Yeah.
Who cares? Why they do this?
You know, Sam, I have to tell you something about mathematicians.
Okay.
They care. I don't know why, but they do. They care so much. They're like, did somebody come up with a weird game? This is very exciting for me.
What would really happen is everybody would get in trouble, right?
You know, like, yeah, what I feel like you should just get on last if you don't have your boarding pass.
That's a bold move, is right. Yeah.
Have you ever been the cause of a seating cascade?
I have.
I have too. It was very embarrassing for me. And I had my boarding pass. I just read it wrong. No. And it was like a 5-person, because I didn't notice, but then other people shifted to accommodate me of like, I guess
they didn't
it's really that second person's fault. Like, it's not your bad. It's that next person who should say,
but they should be able to talk to you. Yeah.
You're in my seat. Sometimes people do go, shut the fuck up and get out of my face when you say that. But sometimes
I like to get into fistfights on airplanes because that way you get to find out a whole new way the airport works.
You got to go into the secret rooms.
Yeah.
It would be a really easy way, Hank, to get the most watched TikTok video of all time if you got in a fistfight. Like, there's a cheat code for you. Yeah.
All right. Our next round, the puzzle is called the secretary problem.
Damn, I heard of this one.
I don't know anything about any of these. So
You did great, though.
That was great. Yeah. Well, now I've set my expectations too high.
I did pretty good too.
I think the secretary problem is if so like hypothetically you have a secretary
off to a really good start.
Yep. Okay. I didn't know hazing was part of the game. And a bunch of people call you. So it's like Ron Swanson and April in Parks and Rec, where you have someone scheduling out your calendar and then someone random walks in. And what is the likelihood that this person actually has a meeting with you on the correct day and time, because your secretary's notes are all over the place? I mean, women, right?
That's right.
I didn't need to add that, but I wanted to, ruin myself with a soundbite.
It is sort of asking to be probably sexist in that they called it the secretary problem. Yeah.
I'm not too confident about mathematician. I know some very nice mathematicians,
Sari?
But also
but this could be from the 50s,
I'm digging the hole so deep.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think it's almost exactly the same as the previous one, but about files instead. You've misfiled something. What are the odds you're ever going to find it again? Something like that.
Now I have to do some hard work here because neither of you are close at all.
Dang.
I think I'm going to give it to Sam. So let me tell you what it is. So the secretary problem, you're hiring a secretary and you've been presented with a pool of candidates to interview. You interview them in a random order. And after each interview, you have to decide right then whether you're going to reject that person or hire them. You don't get to change your mind on this decision, but to help, you do get to rank the applicants you've interviewed so far, though you won't know anything yet about the applicants you have yet to see.
And everybody you've hired so far is out. Is that right?
Everyone's you've hired, yes, correct. All the previous interviews. The secretary problem asks, how do you optimize your ability to get the best applicant? This is a type of problem called a stopping problem. And there are other versions with names like the marriage problem. And there's a solution. You take the total number of candidates you have, interview the first 37% of them, and then pick the candidate after that point who is better than those rejected candidates. So not like the next one after the 37%, but the next one who's better than all 37% of the ones that you've rejected so far. So
wow,
that's how you solve the secretary problem, which is a problem that you would never encounter in the real world.
Right. Unless you're some kind of psycho. Evil person.
Yeah, you got to be a real jerk.
Yeah.
And I gave that to Sam, and I can't really tell you why. It just seemed more like.
I mean, I think Sarah was closer, frankly, but
files, applications.
They're like the files are like people. Almost, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you anyway.
All right. Our last round 3. It's called the Sleeping Beauty Problem.
I don't know enough about Sleeping Beauty. Okay, I'll just go to get it out of the way. I don't know enough about the Sleeping Beauty story. I don't remember. Rose, prick, something.
Is that the
falling
right
asleep, getting woken up by a prince's kiss, I think. So I think this is just about the mean number of hours of sleep you get under... Or it's a probability question. I'll
tell you, you're not going to get it, but you could get close. It's so weird.
Okay, well, then it is the likelihood of you being woken up by another person after you have slept more than, what's an obscene amount? The most I've ever slept is probably 18 hours. After you've slept more than 18 hours, the likelihood that another person is going to be the thing that wakes you up as opposed to, I don't know, a loud noise or naturalness.
Yes. Your own self.
Okay.
Sure. That's a thing.
What are the odds? Or is that what it is? Whatever. That's, you kiss somebody, then they wake up and they see you. Love at first sight. What's the love at first sight? chances. What's the chances of love at first sight with a complete stranger?
After you kiss, I think that probably if you kiss somebody who's sleeping, that the chances of love at first sight are hopefully zero.
That's what. That's why we have to run the numbers.
Pretty big red flag.
That's why we have to run the numbers, Hank.
Yeah, but we'll run the numbers and see. Well, you guys, we're going to figure out who wins this after I tell you about the Sleeping Beauty problem, which I hope that you will approach understanding. So this is a strange experiment that is not, it's just a thought experiment. But imagine that you, the subject, are put to sleep on Sunday. And then researchers flip a coin. And if they flip a tail, you will be woken up on Monday, the next day, and then put back to sleep. But you will have no memory of ever having woken up. The same thing will happen on Tuesday. You will be woken up and then put back to sleep and have no memory of that happening. But if they flip heads, you will only be woken up on Monday. So each time you are woken up during the experiment, you will be asked what is the probability that the researchers flipped a head, but you won't be given any information about the day or anything else when you've woken up. So there are two schools of thought for how people think about the probability that researchers flipped a head. The first is because you have no information when you have woken up. It should be 1/2 because getting heads or tails is equally likely. But the second approach says that the probability they flipped a head is 1/3 because there are 3 situations that could describe the situation you have woken up in. It's Monday and they flipped tails, it's Tuesday and they flipped tails, or it's Monday and they flipped heads. And each of those events are equally likely, so the probability of a heads is 1/3. And the basic idea here is to create a kind of paradox because there isn't a way to know the actual answer to the question. And I guess I'll give it to Sari because it was more about sleep.
They're just being silly.
They are. They are. Sometimes the funnest thing in math is to be like, what if we can use math to break math?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that feels like what they're doing here.
That is kind of fun.
How do we break math?
I think that's
with
a nice
math?
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you break this thing that you've poured so much hours?
Yeah. Feels like speed running a video game, you know? Like you find the right pixel to jump on and then Mario's at the end of the game.
Yeah, you glitch it. You glitch the whole idea of math. So that means that we're heading into the break with Sam at 1 and Sari at 2. Next, it will be time for the Fact Off.
SciShow Tangents is brought to you by Shopify. Sari and Hank, do you guys have any New Year's resolutions?
I would say my New Year's resolution is the same as every year. I should exercise. Yeah, I should think about other things. Every year, I'm like, why didn't I spend more time with my friends? So every year.
That was mine.
Yeah. I'm like, I miss my friends constantly. Yeah. So why can't I just hang out with people more?
Yes.
And that's what I want to do.
Yes.
That's beautiful. And that's yours too, Hank? You're just
stealing
Sari's
exactly
answer.
what I was thinking. I was like,
right.
I want to travel less and go to friends' houses more, have people over more, that kind of
That's nice. That's really nice. Yeah. Well, I second or third that resolution, but also one of my resolutions, and I'm going to get embarrassingly sincere here, is to start selling prints of my illustrations online. Yeah. But I'm a complete dingus, and I don't really know how to build a website or anything, so I guess I should just give up on my dream now.
Oh, I guess so. No, wait, don't give up on your dream, Sam. Shopify's platform makes it easy for anyone, regardless of technical ability or expertise, to start their own business. You can sell online, customize your store with third-party apps. You can get detailed reports on conversion rates and profit margins and beyond. I've been using Shopify since basically Shopify existed.
Oh, wow.
Like Good.Store is built on Shopify. DFTBA.com is built on Shopify. We have a billion plugins that we use to do all kinds of things, to get reviews for the products, to create little quizzes that people can take to help recommend them tea. There's all these very clever people who are working hard to make that ecosystem more useful and robust. And they have good incentives to do it. And Shopify has done amazing stuff for our businesses over the years.
Make your commerce dreams come true by going to shopify.com/tangents, all lowercase. You can try out Shopify's super flexible all-in-one platform for $1 per month at shopify.com/tangents. No matter what stage your business is in, Shopify can help you grow at shopify.com/tangents. That's tangents lowercase, not capitals, just lowercase.
SciShow Tangents is brought to you by Rocket Money. Once again, we find ourselves at the beginning of a new year. Days full of promise and fresh starts. The perfect time to make some resolutions and invent the new, more perfect you. But let's be real. Changing habits is really hard. And I would bet my life that we've probably talked about how New Year's resolutions don't work on this very podcast. Honestly, there's like a 99% chance that I've already forgotten my resolution by the time you're hearing this. I've already forgotten it by the time I'm saying this right now. But when it comes to setting financial resolutions, why, that's a horse of a different color, my friend, because of Rocket Money, a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. So let's all ring in 2025 with Rocket Money, canceling our unwanted subscriptions, lowering our bills, and building personalized budgets that we can actually stick to. And hey, I hope it wasn't any subscription services resolution to make more money, because we're coming for you, subscription services. Let's stand together, shoulder to shoulder with the other 5 million plus Rocket Money users who've each saved up to $740 a year by using all of the app's features. 2024 was the year of the money dummy. 2025 will be the year of the money smarty. With Rocket Money. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/tangents today. That's rocketmoney.com/tangents. Hey, you guessed it, rocketmoney.com/tangents.
Welcome back, everybody. Now get ready for the Fact Off. Our panelists have brought science facts to present to me in an attempt to blow my mind. And after they've all presented their facts, I will judge them and I will award Hank Bucks any way I see fit. But to decide who goes first, I have a trivia question for you. The D120 is a 120-sided die made by Dice Lab. The die is a Diakis triacontrahedron, probably. And it has 120 triangular faces and 62 vertices. One of the major challenges in designing the D120 was figuring out how to position the numbers. The designers counted the number of faces around each vertex and decided that those faces should add up to a certain number based on how many there are. For example, at any vertex where there were 10 faces meeting, the faces should add up to a certain number. But what is that number?
Why does it matter if the numbers on the dice
I think that you have to have a way to order the numbers, and they're not the kind of people that would just do it at random. I don't know. I think that also it's good to have the numbers not be like two numbers that are close to each other, be close by each other.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't think about it too hard, and I'll say that they should add up to 45.
Great. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a little something wrong with that.
Okay, well,
Sari, do you have a pencil out right now?
If you are cheating, you're cheating.
Am I allowed to do mental
that's fine. I just you're such a nerd.
I was like, I don't want to do a realistic answer.
Did you take your pencil out and you started adding 10 plus 60 or 60 times 10 or something?
The math that I did was 120 plus 119, 118, 117, 116. So like the five biggest numbers plus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the five biggest numbers, five smallest numbers to get 605.
The answer is 605.
It's not really, is it?
Oh
my God.
It is.
I haven't lost it. I went to math school. I've never competed in a math competition in my life.
I can't believe it.
You gotta live on that for the next week.
Truly, there's so few moments outside of the school system where you get rewarded for a completely useless thing. And I don't want to go back into academia. I don't want to solve problems for my living. But
so beautiful.
You don't get a feeling
Sari,
like this.
That's a beautiful thing. That's one of the best parts of my day. And I didn't even do it. I just feel good for you. What I would have done is I would have just multiplied 660, like divided 120 by 2 and multiplied that by 10, which would have got me close. But you did something in there I don't even understand.
I don't know either. Sometimes my brain just does things. This is how I've operated my entire life and how I've become the science communicator I am, where it's just like, that makes sense.
I was like, surely that's so stupid what you're doing.
Oh, God, that's intense. Well, Sari wins the episode, but do your fact off.
I'm sweaty. So I rely on all kinds of computer programs every day, including to prep and record tangents, of course. But also, of course, not every chunk of code is for good. Malware, as it's called, is created by programmers who want to cause a little bit of a ruckus, like causing disruption to a network of computers or accessing private information. But one type of malware, which is actually called a worm, is designed to spread as fast and as far as possible, infecting computer after computer. And in my understanding, these worms don't often, but sometimes, change the computer systems themselves, but they cause harm because they take up bandwidth as they're jumping around and blasting past security, and therefore slow down any other kinds of data transfer or how the computers are operating because there's this malware running on it. And in January 2003, the fastest computer worm in recorded history spread throughout the internet. It overwhelmed networks and disabled database servers by taking up way too much bandwidth, leading to canceled flights, Bank of America ATM failures, 911 service failures in Washington state, and lost internet service in countries across the globe. And this worm was called Slammer or Sapphire. Nice. I think Slammer's kind of a cooler.
I think Slammer fits. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's what I use throughout the rest of the fact. And it's what's known as a random scanning worm. So this fact is indeed about randomness. Basically, the way that Slammer operated is it randomly picked IP addresses, checked whether that they were insecure, and then infected any hosts that were vulnerable. And in 3-ish minutes, Slammer was completing more than 55 million scans of possible hosts per second.
Whoa.
And it infected at least 75,000, which is a much smaller number, within 30 minutes. But likely much faster than that. We just don't have an estimate of, because it happened so fast, we don't know how quickly it infected those machines, mostly in the US and South Korea, but sort of all over. And specifically, it targeted computers that were running Microsoft's SQL servers and hadn't been patched for this vulnerability yet. And it basically scanned as fast as a computer could transmit data packets using that random IP address picking, and it made more copies of itself and clogged up the internet bandwidth. But then it slowed down how many computers it could infect as it slowed down the internet as a whole across the world. Yeah, exactly. And it ran on what's known as a pseudo random number generation algorithm, which is where there's you have an initial number that starts the random number generator, and then there's an equation that kind of calculates the sequence from that. And the programmer, to my understanding, this is where my understanding kind of falls apart, made 2 choices that make it hard to accurately measure how many IP addresses were infected and which ones, because of the way they set up that algorithm. Some IP addresses were likely never scanned, and some networks may have been more disrupted than average or less disrupted than average because of the way those numbers were generated, those IP addresses were generated. So it happened really fast and really randomly, but because it was a pseudo-random generator, it wasn't like all IP addresses across the world. It was still a subset of them. So we still have some estimates. And in any case, it is interesting as a case study to think through these kind of random scanning worm disruptions, and especially high-speed worms like Slammer that use this technique, and how to prevent the internet going down in such a spectacular and global way, which it hasn't in this manner since 2003. So I assume we've learned something.
How, though? How is this just not always happening? Like, how's the internet even keeping itself together?
It's got
it is.
Virus protection software. I think there's like a bunch of network security experts saying, how do you make computers check what data they're receiving to make sure it is good and won't like replicate and then pass itself on in the case of a worm, or take over software, and then why you need people to be also smart and check what they're downloading from the internet.
But I like to just download whatever, though. Like
sometimes you can't click.
Sometimes I want an NFT of a little Furby. That's what's really upsetting.
Then like a digital skull pops up on your screen, goes,
like that. Yeah.
I wish that kind of thing happened more often. Never does, though. They're never very fun.
Yeah, they don't want you to know what happened.
Well, that sucks, though.
Sam, can you put me in the slammer?
I wish. I'm working on it. I've got a file I'm building.
All of my crimes.
Yep. Running a business is the most difficult and noble thing that one can do. At least according to people who run businesses.
Yeah.
And managing people is the trickiest part of all of that. Workers must always be striving to improve. Managers must nurture their talents. And it must be assumed that the cream will rise to the top of an organization through hard work and intelligence. Then, once all the people are in the best spots, you can really start raking in that cash. It's the American way.
Sure.
But reality does not always align to the lofty dreams of capitalism. People are complicated, different jobs have different unforeseen challenges, and skills are not always transferable. Thus was born Lawrence J. Peters' Peter Principle, which states that in time, every post tends to be occupied by an employee who is incompetent to carry out its duties. Put another way, people who are good at their jobs get promoted until they get to a position where they aren't good at their job anymore, thus dragging down the efficiency of the company that they work for. Put another way, maybe the way that we promote people is kind of fucked up. So in 2010, a team of researchers set out to learn more about the Peter Principle and explore different, possibly more effective methods of promotion. And what they discovered was totally rando. The team created a simulated business with 160 employees divided into 6 levels of responsibility. So basically like the managers on down. Each of those employees was given a competency value and an age. Then they simulated time passing, and at each particular time interval, I think it was a year, they'd remove people who hit retirement age, and they would fire the employees that sunk below a certain competency level. Then they'd fill those positions by promoting up from the level below where those vacancies were made. And this is where they started getting weird with it. So they tested 4 different methods of promotion. They promoted the best worker. They promoted the worst worker. They alternated promoting the best and the worst worker, and they promoted randomly. So they had a few different methods of assigning new competency with each promotion. So like you'd get a new job, and then to reflect how you would do in your new job, they did a couple things. One was the common sense method, in which competency carried over. So the same competency you had in the previous position you brought to your new one. And the Peter hypothesis, in which a new competency was randomly generated for the promoted person to kind of reflect the idea of the Peter Principle, that not all job competencies carry over. And they also had a version where both of these competency transmission methods were used. So then they did some math to figure out the overall efficiency of the whole company based on the new structure each time this happened. And here's what they found when they ran the model. Promoting the best person only improved efficiency consistently in models that used that common sense competency transmission, that like 1-to-1, in my new job, I'm just as competent. In the Peter hypothesis model, promoting the lowest competency person improved efficiency. So the worst employee getting promoted improved efficiency. In the version where both of them were used interchangeably, the best method they found was to promote people at random. And since in the real world, we don't really know how a person's going to do in their new job, the researchers proposed that the safest bet is just to randomly promote people in your company. So they published this paper, and business news websites start to write articles about it, wondering if like meritocracy is an illusion and HR is a sham. But the team seemed a little uncomfortable with their results being reported on so definitively, because it was, as they called it, a toy model. So then a year later, they set up a new model with a more robust, like realistic hierarchical system and a more granular passage of time. They did it every month instead of every year. And they found the exact same thing. Promoting at random consistently generated the highest efficiency in a company. So is the importance that our culture places on management level jobs, promotions, and meritocracy a fairy tale that C-suite executives tell themselves to make their own success make more sense? Could basically anyone have any job and it would make no difference in the grand scheme of things? Is the very foundation of the American success story built on sand? I don't know, but I think this is kind of funny research.
And also just like takes a huge amount of pressure off me. I could just, I was like, whatever. See how that goes. That's what I want to hear. Just give me research where I don't have to do as much work and that anything that goes wrong wasn't my fault.
Yeah, because the universe wouldn't have mattered anyway because of the universe, man.
And ultimately, most of the animals are nematodes. So they're really in charge.
And they don't even have freaking jobs.
So I have to choose between the fastest computer worm in history, being Slammer, or random promotions to management are the most efficient, and meritocracy is a lie and HR is useless. And put Tuna wrote in Tuna. I think I'm going to go with Slammer. That seems awesome. Both are very scary to me in their own little way.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like when you get a trivia question exactly on, that's just another point in your favor.
That's true. So she has to win no matter what.
So congratulations, Sari, on being whatever it is that you did. You got all the Hank bucks, and you're the king of the episode. Congrats!
Thank you.
Wow! Congrats!
Yeah, not just Halloween. I'm the king of the whole episode, baby.
And now it's time to Ask the Science Couch, where we ask listener questions to our couch of finely honed scientific minds.
Avindasora and Whiskey Wine 5898 on YouTube asked, why is there an apparent abundance of society that associates random with evenly spaced? Can you talk a little bit about the double-edged sword of our fantastic pattern recognition when it comes to how we perceive and react to truly random events that just don't feel random to us at all? AKA, why are humans so bad at detecting randomness?
Yeah. So I think that what's being discussed here is that if you sort of like, if you have like a blank square of space and then you say, okay, put random dots on this, people will put dots that are equally spaced out between each other. They will not clump them together, which is actually likely to happen if you like at a random program.
But it looks so
like a random
messy
dot generator to actually place them. Yeah. And then also like we have this problem where like statistics teachers, this is a great statistics teacher trick where you have people write down strings of heads and tails as if they wanted to make them look random. And then you have another piece of the class actually flip heads and tails. And then the statistics teacher can usually pick out between who actually flipped coins and who pretended to be random, because the random people won't do long strings of heads or long strings of tails, but that will happen with random flips.
Okay.
And why are people bad at this? Because we don't understand what's going on. Like we're not random number generators. We're people. That's how I feel. What do you think, Sari?
I mean, that's basically it. Psychologists study this a lot of how we understand randomness and what knowledge about the universe or expectations about the universe carry over into what we think of as random. So one of the misconceptions that I think was popularized in psychological literature is called the gambler's fallacy, which is what you were describing, Hank, with the coin flips, which is basically this idea that like an increasingly long sequence of heads on a coin flip. Like if you flip a coin, 50% chance of heads, 50% chance of tails. Yeah. The longer the sequence of heads is, like you got to be seeing a tails soon. Yep. When really, in any individual flip, it's a 50-50 chance. Yeah. And seeing a long string of heads doesn't mean that it's more likely you'll get a tails.
But it's weird because if you actually like group them statistically and say, you know, this is part of like all of these tails are in a probability experiment, you are more likely to see it approach 50-50. But if you just look at the next one, it's not how would it ever be affected by what has happened before.
Yeah. And it's tricky because like you were saying, it's like if you look at the situation now of what is the one roulette spin, the probabilities. And if you look at the situation of like an infinite number of roulette spins, the probabilities, but it's those like in between sequences that really trip us up. And there are researchers, what is interesting, especially these two psychologists, Warren and Hahn, I saw their names a lot on these papers, that are kind of arguing that humans are dumb, but randomness is hard. And so we may not be as dumb as we say we are. Like it is, if you teach people how to identify what a random sequence of coin flips look like. So in the example that you talked about the statistics teacher saying, write down what you think is a sequence, another half of the class saying, flipping the coins. If you then show the entire class a coin flip sequence, then they will get better at identifying what randomness is. And so saying that essentially, this is a very complex problem because if you bring people into it blind, then they might try and create some pattern or order, because part of how we survive in this world is creating pattern or order. But once you teach someone what mathematical principles underlie randomness, even if they're counterintuitive, then they'll get better at emulating that or picking it out from a sequence like that. So are a gambler's fallacy really a fallacy? Yes, because it shows up over and over again, and it's how casinos make money. And you can psychologically train yourself out of it as well by like thinking about it in the way that we're thinking and talking about it.
I feel like the dots thing also has like an aesthetic element to it, though, where it just like feels nasty to draw them too close together, Like we can't help ourselves but make it look nice. Yeah,
that one feels weirder to me, where it's like, I do feel weird about putting them close together. And it does not feel like, it feels like there's something, like some violation I'm doing when I put two dots close together and trying to assign random dots.
I couldn't find any papers about that. I didn't look super, super hard, but I assume that's probably what plays into it too. If you were like looking out at a field full of flowers, if the flowers were more scattered, then you'd think, oh, that looks more random than like a cluster planted together, because that's, you can reason and say, well, maybe this flower sprinkled its seeds there or whatever. Right. And so that is something that they talk about in these papers as well, is you can't inspect like a snapshot of a situation and describe it as random or non-random. Like you can't walk out to a field of flowers and be like, oh, that's so random, or, oh, this obviously happened non-randomly. Randomness is a quality of a system over time. So if you watch a lot of different events, or if you like a bunch of different coin flips, a bunch of generations of flowers, can you predict where the next one will be?
Right.
But if you walk into any sort of situation, like it is kind of a misleading question to say, like, is this random? Is it randomly generated is a question.
Right. You can't ascribe randomness to a static system.
Yeah, exactly. Because a random number generator might produce the same number thousands of times in a row, but the system as a whole could go on infinitely long. And so that snapshot would look non-random. Or something non-random could generate what looks like a random sequence, but if you kept going, it would indeed be.
But it's more than that. It's not. It's literally that like randomness is about things happening, not the way things are.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have another question, but this one is for our listeners on Patreon. We're answering a bonus Science Couch question. Sam, what is it?
Shelly on Patreon asked, if I, as a regular person, want to generate a random number, what's the best way to do that? For example, is there a publicly available random number generator online that's more random than a dice roll?
If you want to hear the answer to that question, as well as enjoy all new episodes totally ad-free, head over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/SciShow Tangents. At our $8 a month tier, you get new episodes ad-free and extended shenanigans as we answer a bonus Science Couch question every episode. Our patrons are the best. We're so grateful for their support of the show. If you want to ask the Science Couch your question, follow us on Twitter at SciShow Tangents, or check out our YouTube community tab where we will send out topics for upcoming episodes every week, or you can join the SciShow Tangents Patreon. Thank you to Violet on Patreon, at Frostbite on YouTube, and everybody else who asked us your question for this episode. If you like this show and you want to help us out, it's super easy to do that. First, you can go to patreon.com/SciShow Tangents to become a patron. Get all that stuff I just talked about. Shout out to patron Les Aker for their support. Second, you can leave us a review. That's very helpful. I love reading them, and it helps us know what you like about the show. And finally, if you want to show your love for SciShow tangents, just tell people about us. Thank you for joining us. I have been Hank Green.
I've been Sari Riley.
And I've been Sam Schultz.
SciShow Tangents is created by all of us and produced by Jess Stempert. Our associate producer is Eve Schmidt. Our editor is Seth Glicksman. Our social media organizer is Julia Buzz Bazzaio. Our editorial assistant is Devoki Chakravarti. Our sound design is by Joseph Tuna Medish. Our executive producers are Nicole Sweeney and me, Hank Green. And we couldn't make any of this without our patrons on Patreon. Thank you. And remember, the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be lighted.
But one more thing. Dung beetles are known for rolling around balls of poop, which they also eat and feed to their young. And many species find lumps of poop sort of randomly, using scent to track where an animal did its business. But a few kinds of dung beetles, like the Canthon quadragutatus, don't leave it up to chance. They latch on to the anal region of certain monkey species so they can get the dung straight from the source, falling with the poop to the ground as the monkeys excrete it.
I don't like this, but boy, I guess poop is in high demand.
I love it. They're so smart. They go right to the source.
I think a butt's probably like one of the least random things in the whole universe.
Right? Because it was like one of the first things that life did. It was like, we need to get stuff out of here.
We got to get it in. Mm-hmm. We got to get it out. So we got to get those two things settled first.
I guess cells also the single-celled organisms can kind of have a butt. They could have like a specialized area that is for getting stuff out.
It's a universal constant, the butt. You're not getting surprised by the fact that there's a butt.
Yeah, I mean, some single-celled organisms don't have butts. They have like vacuoles that like pop, but it doesn't like happen in a specific area of the cell.
Well,
so take that, Sam.
If it looks like a butt, smells like a butt, it's a butt.
If it looks like a butt and smells like a butt, it is probably a butt.
Yeah.
That is true.
Fair chance.
Yeah.